300 years of extreme evolutionary divergence and a lethal environmental barrier keep two human factions completely isolated from one another. A catastrophic solar event known as the Great Scorch made the Earth's surface entirely uninhabitable during the day. To survive, humanity split in two directions: the ascendants, who climbed up, and the descendants, who dove down. The ascendants became the lungs. Living high up in the iron cliffs, they developed melanin-rich skin to block radiation, golden night vision eyes to hunt after dark, and agile bodies adapted to a vertical world. Below the surface, the descendants evolved into the Gills. Deep in the pressurized silence of the abyss, they developed translucent skin, artificial branchiae along their necks to process oxygen, and flexible bone structures to survive the crushing weight of the water. These two offshoots of humanity became extreme evolutionary opposites. A lung cannot breathe liquid, and a gill cannot survive the strong gravity and dry air of the surface. Physical contact is biologically impossible. Physiology is only half the problem. The ocean surface itself is blocked by a 50-meter thick layer of toxic sludge and chemical rot. This diagram shows a cross-section of the world's geography, focusing directly on that central sludge layer. If a lung descends into this mix of mutated algae and ancient plastics, they suffer immediate chemical pneumonia. If a gill swims up into it, the acidity causes severe desiccation and acid burns. Because this layer is entirely opaque, it created a total informational blackout. Over 3 centuries, both societies forgot the other existed, reducing their neighbors to myth. The lungs called the underwater bioluminescents ghosts, while the gills looked up at the surface fires and called them static stars. This barrier acted as a 300-year blindfold. Making contact required surviving a lethal environment while trying to communicate with what was essentially an alien species. Kael, a young lung scout, rejected the dogma of his elders. He became obsessed with the ocean below, spending his nights watching those strange underwater flashes. Below the sludge, Lyra, a gill archivist, shared that same fascination. She would swim to the very edge of the toxic film, watching the warm glow of the surface fires flicker far above her. The breakthrough came mechanically. Kael took polished steel, caught the moonlight, and reflected it downward, sending a bright silver spark straight through the toxic sludge. Lyra saw the flash. Using the bioluminescent patterns on her skin, she pulsed back a perfect binary sequence. 1 flash, 2 flashes. By utilizing light, the single medium capable of penetrating the chemical rot without degrading, they established a mathematical sequence. They proved to each other that intelligence existed on the other side. To get closer, Lyra tracked down the coordinates to Station 09, a forgotten 21st century marine biology lab. It was anchored into the side of the iron cliffs, but submerged deep underwater. The station's observation deck served as a neutral zone. It featured a pressurized, air-filled interior, separated from the flooded exterior by a 2-foot-thick acrylic window. When they finally met face-to-face, the glass kept them safe from the opposing environments. It also left them completely unable to hear each other or touch. To solve this, they salvaged digital tablets from the ancient research station's archives, using surviving language programs to translate symbols into words. They began a slow vocabulary exchange, matching wildly different environmental concepts. Kael taught her the word for mountain, and Lyra taught him the word for tide. Physical proximity was only the first step. To actually understand one another, they had to build a conceptual bridge out of dead languages to cross a massive cultural divide. Their connection faced its ultimate test when a massive earthquake triggered the Great Sinking. The station's glass fractured, sending toxic water spraying into Kael's side and causing lethal pressure shifts for Lyra. With the airlock flooding, Kael grabbed the tide suit, an experimental hybrid exoskeleton he'd found in the archives. By sealing Lyra inside a suit that could balance her internal pressure and hydration while supporting her weight and gravity, they achieved the first mechanical crossover in 300 years. They escaped to the Blue Hole, a hidden limestone cavern within the cliffs. Here, the natural rock filters the toxic sludge, and a unique atmospheric pocket maintains a stable temperature, providing a rare, manageable environment where both biologies can persist. The establishment of the Tide Colony followed, as Kael and Lyra used the station's technical archives to show their respective leaders that coexistence wasn't just a dream, but a technical possibility. It took years of engineering to scale Kael's prototype suit into a shared infrastructure, but they eventually built a small, sustainable community where neither side had to survive alone. Kael and Lyra proved that while the environmental barriers were physically real and deadly, they were no longer insurmountable. The true obstacle wasn't the sun or the sea, it was the 3 centuries of isolation that had convinced both worlds that a solution was impossible. Shared curiosity allowed them to engineer their way through the fear of fear.